We're going to talk about memory today. If you remember, we looked at the chapter on learning. The next test is coming up very quickly, and it's going to be over the topics of learning, classical and operant conditioning, and it's going to be over memory, and it's going to be over emotions. I'm going to cover memory today and emotions on Monday, and then it happens fast, so be prepared. Let me start this way. I just barely introduced the topic of memory, but are there any questions about anything related to the class topic before I get started? Here are some key questions in the field of memory. What would it be like to have a perfect memory? Do you remember the videotape we showed a week ago of the woman that has this perfect memory? That would be weird. Let me start with this question. Ready? Does God have a perfect memory? How many say that God has a perfect memory? Let me see your hands. How many would say God doesn't have a perfect memory or doesn't remember anything or all things? Anybody want to make the case that there are things that God doesn't remember? Wait, that God what? So in order for God to fully forgive us, there has to be something that He doesn't remember? Or that maybe He forgets. Does God forget anything?
I would say He doesn't have to forget in order to forgive.
He doesn't have to forget in order to forgive.
Yeah, just like in
Seems like for humans, we have the same possibility of we can forgive without forgetting.
Well, I mean, God is.
God is.
So, in a sense, He doesn't need to remember because He is.
God is. He doesn't need to remember. He's just part of His being as
He am.
He ams.
Because memory requires a time frame.
And memory requires a time frame. God is not necessarily bound by this particular time frame. He is. He ams.
If He knows what's going to happen and what will be, how can He not have?
And if He knows what happened is going to be, but then how could He not? I'm going to say, I think He truly does forget. I think evidence is clear biblically that the answer to this question, does God have a perfect memory, is He is. He is God. He's outside of time. He is who He is. But God does not remember everything. What would something He doesn't remember? Does God choose to forget anything? Come on, does He? It seems to me that if you were to yesterday have a relationship, if you have a relationship with Jesus and you said this, you said to God yesterday, God, I blew it. I messed up. I have sinned. And I ask your forgiveness for this sin. And then if you did that yesterday and today you were to say to Him, God, do you remember that sin yesterday? What would He say if you could hear His voice? I think He would say, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, am I wrong? Is that possible? Is there any evidence for the fact that if you were to confess a sin and give it to Him fully and completely, that the very next day, let's just say, just for fun, that the next day He said, God, you remember that sin? I think He says, no, I don't remember that sin. Why would I say that?
Do you think that He literally forgets or He remembers?
She's saying, does He literally forget or does He choose not to remember? Is that what I guess it's maybe both. I don't know. What do you think?
I think He
chooses not to remember. What does Micah 7:19 say? He will cast all of their sins into the depth of the sea. Some translations say He dumps your sins into the sea of forgetfulness. That's an amazing verse. Your sins go into the depths of the sea. It literally means your sins are put into a place where He doesn't remember them. I think you need to think about this for just a second. I may be wrong, but I'd like us to at least think about what does the sea of forgetfulness truly mean? By the way, Corrie Ten Boom, anybody read her? Corrie Ten Boom? grew up somewhere, I don't remember in Europe what in particular, but lived a good part of her life in the concentration camps. She wrote some amazing books. One of the key things I love is she talks about Micah 7:19. Anybody know what she says? When you take your sins and ask God for forgiveness of sins, He throws them into the sea of forgetfulness, and then does what? But you know what she says God does next? Puts up a sign. Anybody know what the sign says? I'll tell you in a minute. She knows. Isaiah 43:25. And I will not remember your sins. It's a very powerful idea then. For you have cast all of my sins behind your back. That's another kind of way of saying these sins are behind me, they are gone. Now, it probably isn't literal forget. It probably is I've chosen.
Oh, my pastor, he said we should fear God for when we die, like, isn't he supposed to tell us our sins or something? Is there an accounting of the things we have done in life, she says, right, at death? By the way, the sign that Corrie Ten Boom puts up is a sign that says no fishing. God takes your sins, puts them in the sea of forgetfulness, and puts up a sign that says you can't go fishing again for this sin. It's in the sea of forgetfulness. The blood of Christ covers these things. All right, it's just a thought. I don't have the answer. Just, yeah.
Is that maybe our forgetfulness? That we can have the privilege of being able to
yeah. His question is this maybe referring to our forgetfulness? I think the answer is when he casts them into this sea, it could very well be. We'd have to maybe go look at that and see what the author intended. Yeah?
But if he casted those sins into the sea of forgetfulness, he knows what went into that sea. So therefore he knows what the sea contained.
Yeah. I think these are all, yeah, could be. My own personal kind of way I've done this is I think that if we confess our sins, He forgives us our sins and purifies us from all unrighteousness. And I think they go here and they are dealt with, they're done. The blood of Christ covers this completely. That's my belief. But it's an interesting thought. Now, we are dealing in the psychology of memory with something very different, and that is human memory. Is this possible for us? And to show you, I really want to spend some time today looking at what human memories are like, what has changed over the last 20 years in the field of psychology when it comes to memory, and then what are the things related to memory that have huge impacts for us, and what can we take away? So we'll look at what it would be like not to remember anything beyond 2 minutes. Did I just hit play? There's a video clip I want to show you of a person who does not remember anything beyond 2 minutes. What happened was he had something called viral encephalitis. It caused him a great headache for a couple of days, came out, and his memory now is only about a little less than 2 minutes long. And in this, what you'll find is a very tortured, difficult individual. That is, he will have a conversation with you like this, and as he's talking with you, he will forget what you were talking about or what has just gone on, and he'll say, I have just woken up right now. And here, this is him right here.
You don't remember sitting down?
Wait.
I reckon you've been here about 2 minutes at least.
I've never noticed it. My eyes have started working now, and all I've seen the whole time I've been sitting here. What is that?
And do you feel absolutely normal?
Not absolutely normal, no. Completely and completely confused.
Confused?
Yes. We've never eaten anything, never tasted anything, never touched anything, there's no something. What about you sitting all that?
Keep it low because it gets louder.
Well, I don't know what the hell's been going on.
Clive was an outstanding musician.
He would take his work very, very seriously. At the same time, he loved music so much that he just really threw himself into it totally.
Clive was
Plus, I
a
still have my
musician
stuff
of
up there,
enormous
right?
integrity.
He was the world's expert on Lassus, one of the 3 or 4 great composers of the Renaissance.
And he
do you
also
mind?
worked
Not that
a
it
great
gets
deal in
hard up there
contemporary
to
music. Chorus master of the
concentrate
London
on what they're
Symphony
saying, what I'm
which is
doing, so I
Europe's
go
foremost group.
to make all these
Music
switches.
flowed out of him, whether he's singing or playing or
Eventually, I can do it, but I know exactly what
Clive
you've
Waring,
done.
through a cruel
It's
twist
just a
of
matter
fortune,
of
shows us how fundamental consciousness and memory are to our lives.
Nobody else I care about in the world, I hope.
So how are you feeling this morning?
I'm conscious for the first time. It's the first time I've seen anybody talk.
You've not been conscious before?
No.
I've been here before this
I haven't
morning.
seen you before.
No, you haven't?
No. I've not seen anything at all before. I've been completely blind the whole time. No taste, so this is the first taste I've had.
That's the first coffee you've had?
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers. And how are you seeing things?
Absolutely normally. It's the first time.
Full colour?
Yes. I've never seen anything the whole time I've been on. No black and white, nothing.
Do you remember me arriving?
No. I don't remember any arrival talk. I don't remember writing any of that talk. No, nothing to do with me consciously. It's been unconscious writing.
So what are you doing here?
Well, I don't know if there's any patients going. That's the first time I've seen any talk.
Will it be easy for me to make the change, or do you want to stick around? Okay.
It all started with a
Just about
headache.
3 more minutes.
Clive came home one day and said he had a very bad headache. The headache didn't lift, it didn't respond to analgesics. By the 4th day, he developed quite a high fever, and on the evening of the 4th day, for a little while, he forgot his daughter's name. By the 5th day, he was very delirious.
Clive suffered from viral encephalitis, which has led to the damage of the left and the right temporal lobes, plus a good portion of the left frontal lobe. Now, the temporal lobes contain a structure called the hippocampus, which we know is implicated in memory function, and in Clive it has almost certainly been completely destroyed in both sides of his brain. It's this that's primarily responsible for his severe memory impairment. In addition, the damage to his frontal lobes also causes a number of additional memory problems, which are manifest mostly in terms of him repeating himself a lot and generally showing highly emotional behaviour.
Clive's world now consists of a moment with no past to anchor it and no future to look ahead to. It is a blinkered moment. He sees what is right in front of him, but as soon as that information hits the brain, it fades. Nothing makes an impression, nothing registers. Everything goes in perfectly well because he has all his faculties, his intellect is virtually intact, and he perceives his world as you or I do. But as soon as he's perceived it and looked away, it's gone for him. So, it's a moment-to-moment consciousness, as it were, of a time vacuum. And everything before that moment is completely void. And he feels as if he's awakening afresh the whole time.
Lovely hand you got. Fantastic. I worked the first time. You're the first person I've seen.
It's very nice to meet you.
How has it been?
It's good. It's like 2.5 years now.
Maybe 1 night, 2.5 years long.
1 night.
So it's been nice. Not seen anything till now. Not even anything before this year. But I give him the impression of being conscious awake. Not true.
He always thinks he's been awake for about 2 minutes. And that's why he looks at his watch all the time to record it, to record the fact, I've woken up, this is an important event, therefore I will write it down in my diary. So he writes, 11:54 a.m. I am now completely awake for the first time. And he underlines first time. Patience begins, because he's always playing patience. And the whole diary, every page, is a succession of entries saying almost the same thing, of first awakeness. And when he goes back and looks at his own entries, he doesn't acknowledge that they are genuine. He says, he knows it's his handwriting, but as far as he's concerned, he was unconscious when he wrote them. So he quite often, he'll score out what he's written before. And so his life is an ever-repeating moment of first awakening, the strongest thing in his life. I believe, and his diaries bear that out, is his love for me. And that's absolutely raw. And each time I walk into that room, it is as if it's the first time he's seen me for years.
Good heavens above! Well done.
The other things I'll have will be videos.
You surprised to see me?
The first time I've seen anybody at all. The first person I've seen.
You've not seen me before this morning?
No.
I have been here. So how are you feeling this morning?
I'm conscious for the first time. It's the first time I've seen anybody at all.
You've not been conscious before? I've been here before this morning.
I haven't seen you before.
No, you haven't?
No. I've not seen anything at all before. Been completely blind the whole time.
You don't remember me arriving at all?
No. No, I don't remember that you arriving from me at all.
No.
No idea at all.
But you know who I am? Or do you kiss all women like that?
You know I love you. I don't kiss anybody.
Yes, I do know. I do know. You've written it all over your diary. Look. I bet you, if I look to see what you've written, you haven't mentioned me on that page. You've mentioned me on this page. My first thought, I adore Deborah for eternity.
That's right.
People's entries in the diary are rubbish. What does that mean?
No idea.
Did you write that?
I've never consciously at all, no. We're showing you now for the first time.
But is it your handwriting?
Yes, it is. But I know nothing about it at all.
So how do you think it got there?
I do. I presume the doctor didn't know.
But you must...
No, I haven't. You listen to me, please, don't say it. When I say no, I mean exactly that. I haven't seen the book at all till now.
No, all I'm saying...
No, that means I haven't seen it, I have no knowledge of it at all. That's all. There's no knowledge of that book at all. It's entirely new to me. But just use your intelligence, and let's have a comment with your intelligence.
But you put... Who would put that?
I don't know, no. Oh, for heaven's sake, use your intelligence, for heaven's sake. I'm really this is a funny thing. Well, use your intelligence.
Clive gets extraordinarily angry, and who wouldn't? Because here you're not dealing with somebody who is demented, who is oblivious, who is gaga. You are dealing with a perfectly lucid, highly intelligent man who has been robbed of knowledge of his own life, and he feels deeply humiliated to be put in that position. Very, very frustrated. He can't grasp what's wrong with him, because even as you're telling him, he's forgetting the previous sentence.
Clive has lost a form of memory which probably distinguishes human beings perhaps from all other animals. He's lost the highest form of memory, a form of memory that enables you to relate yourself to the past and project yourself into the future. So in a sense he feels like a man adrift.
As far as I'm concerned, I haven't heard a note of music, seen any music, have any contact with music at all.
You're still a very good conductor.
He is he's able to play music, and I'm going to stop it here, but he can go through, sit at the piano, and probably go for 5-6 minutes, which is interesting. It's kind of one of these quirks. I have a video of him 10 years later after this, and it's nothing has changed. Same thing. He has to be watched all the time. He will just wander. If he's not watched, he can go someplace and then wake up going, I don't know where I am. He just keeps waking up. So what this illustrates is something very powerful, right? Our memory does something for us. It connects us to our past, but it also provides us the moment of this present. We don't think about this until there are weird things like this. Yeah, question?
How does he know his wife?
He knows his wife because this accident preserved his long-term memory of things and his children. So he knows things that occurred when he was young. Does that make sense? Until that moment in time when he was, however old he was. From that point forward, he doesn't have new memories. But it's from that point forward. In fact, if you gave him a mirror, he would look at the mirror and he would go, what happened? I got older. I'm just. Is this right? He wouldn't know how old he was. He would go, I don't know. I'd have to guess. Yeah.
How could you stay angry?
But by the way, the emotional side is, you can imagine what it'd be like all the time, this weird thing, you don't know what's happening, but there was probably some other brain damage that went on as well that influenced probably some emotional states of his, but they're not sure exactly some of the other damage that could have occurred, but you can just imagine in general how frustrating that would be all of the time to have that. So They're trying to explain it. That might be both a combination of what's happened to him and then some other things that might have happened with his brain. But yeah.
So do 2 minutes cycle, or does it?
It's more loose than that. It's not like this exact cycle, but it's more just the length probably of our short-term memory and how long it kind of lasts. He's processing it, and then as soon as that's done, he's just so it could be as short as a minute and a half or a couple minutes long. Good question. He sleeps normal and everything else. I don't know. I mean, his body still has regulations just like we would and gets tired. By the way, here's another tough question. Can you forget or repress a traumatic event that happened during your childhood? This is a very difficult question that for in psychology has put us in this. Is it warm in here?
Yes.
I don't know how to fix it either. I just wanted to know it because it's warm for me. Can you have some event that occurs during childhood that you have forgotten completely everything about? Have you ever heard of this happening? Is it possible that there is some event? And by the way, this has come to the front of this field of psychology in the topic of memory because the question has been, is that really likely? Some event, could it be that bad that you've forgotten it? Well, the answer is, it's somewhat complicated. It is possible that those kinds of things occur, but it's more likely that those events that are recalled later on, and I'll give you an example of this, that were supposedly forgotten, may not be completely accurate. There may be some things that have occurred. Here's some new trends in the field of memory. By new, I mean over the last decade or so, there's been a shift, certainly over the last 20 years, there's been this shift from when I was a graduate student in the field of memory, they were still looking at, and there are still some who do this, looking at how much information we can store, the amount of information does memory or short-term memory hold, or how oftentimes do we retain over time is now a question about the pliability of memory. So we have made this kind of shift from storage and amount of information retained to how pliable, plastic is memory. Can you remember something? How many think you could remember something as a memory but it never really happened to you? Does anybody have a memory of something that you think happened but it never really happened? And how do you know? How do you know that something never happened to you? But you haven't.
Well, I have a memory of being really young and visiting my cousin's house.
Yeah.
And halfway, two odd things happen. First is that halfway through, it seems to have gotten sort of melted together with some sort of Animal Kingdom commercial. Somebody opens the door and then it's like, oh, cool.
So his early memory is, he says, of family, and he remembers it. All of a sudden it turns into an Animal Kingdom commercial, so you know that you weren't in it.
And the second thing is that everything in it, the entire house is flipped. When I went to visit that same cousin's house years later, I was like, everything is on the opposite side. The fireplace was here, now it's here, the stairs are there.
Is it possible that sometimes we have memories of things that, or do you have memories of some, you found out it's just a picture and it becoming, or it really happened to your sister or your brother, you thought it happened to you? The pliability of memory is fascinating. It means we are now asking questions, how accurate do we believe your memories are? We believe now, and there's lots of evidence that's showing that memories are fairly quirky, fallible. Yeah, go ahead, question.
Isn't it considered forgetting if you don't remember on your own, but when someone reminds you, you remember it?
Yeah. Does that happen frequently or often? Yeah. Her question is this, if you don't remember something, but then you see somebody and they remind you, hey, do you remember 10 years ago this event, and then you recall it and remember it, we wouldn't call that forgetting. What we'd call is just recall, right? It's a form of memory. You wouldn't recall that on your own, but there was some prompt that you never had before, which is a friend or a conversation, so that it came up there. By the way, but when we say memory is fallible, quirky, and reconstructive, you don't have to write this quote down, but it's the idea that when we start looking at memory, it's almost like not a videotape recording of your life, but more like theater. You imbue this, you set your memories up kind of like a theater would, rather than a digital recording. Okay? And that is when you do it as a theater, you can show the same play on this stage and the same play 20 miles away on a different, and it'll come across differently because of the actors and because of the production that's going on, and you can choose to emphasize some things in a theater production that you wouldn't before. It's not like showing the same video clip somewhere else, and memories are more like that. What that means is some of our memories are more like, in this case, is the theater or a theater of the past, that some of it we've made up, some of it we've added elements to it, some of it we've kind of created parts of this, and this is weird. They've taken a college student, and you know how long it took to set into most college students? Anyone take a guess how long it would take for me to put a memory into your mind of some event that never happened in your life and you'll recall it as a memory? It would not take very long at all. Researchers found, some researchers, one not far from here at the University UC Irvine, a researcher took college students, asked them to complete this. They said, tell me about memories, but before we do, we want to know if we can contact your parents and have them supply to us 4 or 5 memories of things that happened or events that happened in your life that you're likely to remember. And so the students said, sure. So they contacted these students' parents. The parents gave them 4 events that this kid will probably remember. Oh, he'll remember when he was 6. He was riding his bike and he got hit by a car. It was really... He was riding his bike and he fell and it was really bad. He survived and everything, but he'll remember that. We talk about it. He'll remember that. He'll remember this and this and this. And then they say, now, do we have your permission to tell this college student, did he ever get lost in the mall? And he wandered away from you. And when they said, no, that never happened, they say, well, we're going to tell your student that one of those memories is that he got lost in a mall and we want to see what happens. They said, great. So here's what happened. They brought the college student in and here's what they did. They said, your parents gave us these 5 memories. You got hit by a bike one time. Do you remember that? They go, oh yeah, I got hit. It was bad. I remember, oh, I lost my teeth. I fell down on the sidewalk and my teeth fell. I remember that memory. I remember the one time when we moved, I was 6. And they go like this, I was lost in a mall? I don't remember that. Really? Lost in a shopping mall? Huh. Man, I don't think I remember that. And this 5th one, oh yeah, I remember that. And then they said, all right, now think about these memories, see if anything comes back to you and come back next week. They come back next week and they say, yeah, did you have any more memories? Yeah, I kind of remember a little bit more now that I was prompted about this bicycle accident. Not fun. And I remember this. But the mall, I kind of start to remember some details. I remember kind of being that a guy found me and he was wearing this, I kind of remember now. He was wearing like a plaid shirt and he saw me and he grabbed me and mom said, don't ever go away like that again. And now these students are beginning to remember a situation, an event that never happened to them. That's weird. Is it that easy? Well, because it's that easy, researchers are now questioning how pliable truly is our memory. Would you believe somebody who didn't have a memory for years and years and years, and now, ready? They recalled something that didn't happen, that they didn't remember for 15 years. Suppose you had to decide how accurate this person was when they recalled now something that they hadn't thought about and didn't remember and they're going, oh, I didn't remember this, but now I remember the details. Well, all of these things make for good, interesting stories. And I'm going to give you an example of this. Think about, anybody have any memory or any memories of movies that use memory as a theme? Like they lost their memory? What's a good one that you know? 50 First Dates. Okay, I'll tell you what. Okay, what was that one? Juice Bigelow. Memento. How many remember that one? Memento. Give me another one. Born Identity. Finding Nemo. Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. Or Eternal. Well, you guys remember this one? Yeah. All right, watch. Is that accurate? Well, we'll talk a little bit about amnesia. Here's some other movies, maybe. You don't have to write these down. You might find some on here that you haven't thought about. Some of these movies have small pieces about memory, some larger pieces. As you look at this, here's the theme. You don't have to necessarily write this down, but it comes down to this. Memories do have this amazing way of helping us know about ourselves, defining us and connecting us to our past. So, as we explore these things and you look at some of these, there are others that are out there. It's a very common theme. Let me start with this. This woman right here is in a courtroom testifying. The reason she's testifying in a courtroom is because she was sitting there and her daughter was 6 years old, and her daughter looked up at her like this. Her daughter was playing, and the daughter looked up. She's, I don't know, 4 or 5, whatever she was, looked up, and this woman went like this. She went, oh, and a thought came back to her about that look, sparked a memory of the exact look of a friend when she was 6 years old herself, looked just like that right before she was murdered. And she went, oh, that look. I remember my friend, or we were 8, 6, 7, 8, whatever. And that's what she looked like right before she was murdered. That means I was there. And she started to recall, and sure enough, she'd known that this friend of hers in the neighborhood was murdered. She knew that. But then at this moment she went, I was there because that's the look right before she was killed. That means I was there. That means I must know who it is. And they had never solved this murder. And so she went and talked to her husband, and she went and talked to friends about, I just remember something. I was there, and they have never solved this murder, but I had to have been there. And they started to help her piece back her memory. And her husband said, you got to go talk to somebody else because I can't help you, and maybe they can help you recall your memory. So she went to somebody, and they began to fill in the pieces. And now she's at court because she remembered a lot more about who killed her little friend. This is her friend. And her little friend, she now remembered this. She remembered, and as she's describing this memory of the guy that killed her holding a rock above his head about to smash her friend's head, and she went, oh, that was the look. And this is what he was doing. And the person she remembered as doing that was her father. So now it's her father that she goes, oh, wait, I know who it was now. It was my dad that did this. And so the father, right there, was arrested based upon a 20-year-old memory that she had forgotten all about, reconstructed over the period of a couple of months, and now she goes, it was him. They put him on trial. He was convicted of murder and sent to prison for the murder of they didn't have any evidence that linked him other than her memory. They lived in the same neighborhood. They interviewed all these different people. He was now convicted on the basis of a 20-year-old memory of a little girl who was 8 and now recalled it at 28.
So is that something like trauma can repair
well, the question is, how could she have forgotten that for 20 years? Do you think it was accurate? Psychologists were brought in, obviously, because these kinds of things, if they are occurring, is this now, I just told you that one of the new trends in the field is that the pliability of memory. The researcher who I told you was able to implant a memory in a college student was asked to come to this trial and said, I will go do experiments and I'll show you how easy it is to really implant a memory in somebody. And on the basis of her experiments that found I can make a college student believe that he was lost in a mall, how easy is you think this person could be thought that, or be led to believe that it was her father? And based upon that, he appealed this saying, and by the way, the whole time he's going, I didn't murder anybody. This is crazy. He appealed, by the way, and was released out of prison because it was now questioned, is somebody able to really forget something that long, and is that memory true? Or based on this researcher has found, is it, by the way, this researcher, her particular name is Elizabeth Loftus, based upon some of this findings, should we really trust this person's memory? It's too easy to implant things. The therapist could have easily said, do you remember this? What was it like? What were you feeling? Can you think of any faces? Can you think of any pictures? Think about some men in the life that might do this. That it was possible that they inadvertently made her think about her father during this time. By the way, he sued. He was set free because repressed memory evidence was invalidated. After all this research, they went, gosh, we don't think we can trust a 20-year-old memory, especially what was happening to her as people were talking to her and trying to help her sort out these memories. And they threw it out. It was invalidated. By the way, when he got out, he sued his daughter and the people for false imprisonment, saying, I never did this, and you convicted the wrong guy, and I'm going to sue everybody. And that's the latest, by the way, was the suit in repressed memory that occurred just about a couple of years ago now. It has been thrown out, and he's out free now, and there is no evidence at all linking him to this murder, but the murder is still unsolved. Okay? Question has now come up to psychology. How good are our memories of things like this? Is it possible for us to take this? By the way, this is the researcher, Elizabeth Loftus, who I just described some of the research she has done to show, I'm not sure we should trust this. I'm not sure, given what she experienced, that that's trustworthy, because it's too easy to implant things. And based upon, you don't have to write this down up here. This is just simply the idea that suggestions, she says, can make people believe they had an experience that they almost certainly did not. And I've described that for you. Were there questions? Okay. Any questions on that? You've just saw that, by the way, the person you saw in the video previously, his name was Clive Waring, and I was going to show you a little video of him today, but just trust me, he just looks a little bit older, his wife looks a little bit older, same issues. It will not go away. There's permanent damage to his brain in this regard. He still lives this way. But there are other fascinating memories I want to just talk about. Your book mentions a guy, Russian mnemonist named Shereshevsky. They just write his name as the Russian mnemonist S. He was a journalist who could remember, just like the video of the woman who never forgot. He never forgot any conversation he ever had. So he would go out as a journalist and interview people. He wouldn't take any pen or paper or pad of paper with him because he would just remember everything. In fact, that's what got him in trouble. Someone said, hey, he goes out and does these interviews. He never writes anything down. They said, how could you do that? He goes, well, I don't ever forget any conversation. So because of that, he was studied by a group of psychologists over there. He had some amazing abilities. He, not only could he remember every conversation he ever had, he could remember and memorize things like poetry and foreign language, but he could do it backwards as well. Your memory for numbers is like this. If I started listing off numbers right now, how many numbers, if I just started listing them, ready? Numbers between, let's say 1 and 20. 1, 11, 12, 6, 3, 8, 15, 16, 18, 16. If I kept going, how many numbers, and I said, all right, stop, recall the numbers in order. How many could a normal person remember? You're going to remember, research, probably in the neighborhood of 7, plus or minus 2. Some of you might get 5, some of you might get 9, but the average person is going to recall between 5 and 9. Usually that was called the magical number 7, plus or minus 2. Shereshevsky could remember hundreds of these digits, and then he could do this. By the way, here's 100 digits, just to show you a string of 100 digits. Looks like this. You would give him these numbers, and he'd go, you would just say, ready? 13, 11, 2, 9, 18, 6, 5. This is 100 right here. You'd get done, and he'd go like this. Okay, do you want him forward or backward? And there was only one time he would forget a number usually, or not remember it, is if you were right here, 5, 8. And at this point, if you were reading this and in the room somebody coughed, right when you were doing 5, 8, someone would go oh, like that. He would get to this point, and he'd go, yeah, just like her. He would get 6, 5, 8, and he'd go, I can't see the number because somebody coughed and there's a puff of smoke over the number. I can't see the number. And then he'd go on and say 1, 12, 20. That cough impressed itself on his memory as a puff of smoke, which covered up his memory of that number. By the way, that's called weird. No, it's called, that's called synesthesia. Synesthesia is this thing where I say words to you, numbers to you, 6, 9, 13, 5, 8, 3, or coughs, and it impresses itself on a synesthesia's memory as visual images, even though it was coming in the auditory channel. Does anybody have that experience? You see colors at music. Some people in here can see things that they hear. Well, anyway, coughs. He had a hard time forgetting, and so he ended up, unfortunately, living out his life in an asylum. Your book does talk about the Russian mnemonic S. It's a great story. It does illustrate some oddness about memories when they are with categories that are strange, whether it's not having a memory for more than 2 minutes, like Clive, or a recalled memory of something you've forgotten, or a perfect, quote, memory. It usually illustrates struggles, problems. He had a hard time. He would talk to you and say, he had a hard time knowing, is this going on now or is this something in the past that occurred? He had a hard time separating out what occurred in the past because he remembered it perfectly versus what's going on now, and it was really difficult for him to forget things. He started, if he wanted to forget a conversation, that he would write it mentally on a board and then erase it, and it helped him a little bit. Strange. By the way, there are memory exams of things like this, the letter pi, the number pi, which is a mathematical, you don't have to write this down. You know, it's the ratio between the diameter and circumference of a circle, 3.14. Anybody remember some of these digits? 3.14, how, anybody remember a lot of them? How many?
3.14, 15926, 3223, 8979. I used to be able to go like a little bit further, but
That's 20 digits, that was pretty good.
I can get 20.
You can do how many?
I can't do 20 anymore.
Can't do 20.
Go up to like 40.
Anybody, she could do close to 20, maybe 40. What's the record? By the way, if you calculate this out, it goes on and 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 on. These numbers don't have any significant patterns to them. It just keeps going. And so people have chosen to remember the digits of pi as just a test, like she did, up to 20 or whatever. But the world record is how many? This guy, October 4th, 2006. He started this, you don't have to write this down either. It's just interesting. 100,000 decimal places. It's like a book of the decimal places of pi, and he's gone through it, and he'll just go 3.1415, 100,000. Oh, by the way, again, it took him 16 hours to recall the digits. Let me just tell you, you don't have to write all this down. I think it's just interesting. In July, the year before this, he got to 83,431, but he had to stop 3 hours into it because he lost his place, so he had to start over from the beginning. Oof, that was painful. Then he recited, in the year before that, he got to 54,000, but the facility hosting the event had to close for the night. I'm sorry, you got to come back tomorrow. That didn't break it. So anyway, that's his, he uses a form. Here's the word I was talking about, synesthesia. Was there a question? No. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a tough one. That is, there are people who use certain memory techniques and devices that help them recall things, and then there are those that just seem to more naturally, is that what your question is? That have a more naturally, yeah, just do it. There's probably not a whole lot different in that some people that, quote, just naturally do this have probably stumbled on some things at work and help. And some that have learned this have just figured out, ooh, there's a way to set things up in my mind so I don't forget them, and different techniques. And I think some people just stumbled on it, yeah.
What's the difference between this and like photographic memory?
Okay, I'll tell you the difference between this and photographic memory. Give me a second and I'll tell you the difference. How's that? Photographic memory is one of these very interesting phenomenons that not a lot of people have, but I'll share what that means. It's usually of a visual nature, and that's why they call it photo, obviously graphic. I'll talk a little bit about it because everybody in this room actually has, if they have normal vision, has a photographic memory. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. You don't have to write this down. And if you already did, well, awesome. That's cool. You're fast writers and should be proud. We store a lot, more than many books combined. But what's most interesting besides this is that there are patterns that we use in forming memories that I want to share and talk a little bit about real quick. Forming a memory, here's what I'd like you to do. Ready? Look at the screen, but don't write this thing down. It's a word. 10 seconds. Don't write it down. 10 seconds. Remember it. Don't write it down. You can write this stuff down. I'll come back to that slide in a minute. Information processing. It requires this. Name, really? Real quick? Name the 7 dwarfs. Here's what I want you to do. Write them down. In your notes, write down the 7 dwarfs. Usually from Snow White, not from like the dwarfs in, where's another set of dwarfs? Lord of the Rings, not those guys, not Gimli. Shh, to yourself. All right, how many found this task? How many are still working? Go fast. How many believe you got all 7? Huh. How come you got all 7, and why do you think? Don't tell me what they are, but why do you know? You just decided to memorize them, so they're there. 7, watched the movie many times. They meant something to you. How many like got none?
Dopey.
You have to be quiet. How many got none? None of you. All right. How many have a few? But there's some that want. How about like there's 1 or 2 on the tip of your tongue? You're like, I know it. It's close. All right. Ready? The difficulty or ease of this task has a lot to do with, did you put this information in? Information processing says if you never went to the movie and didn't really care, then you're not it's going to find it difficult. Some of you go to movies. I'm like this. I go to a movie and I'll say to my wife, I'll say, now, who's that? And she goes, oh, that's, Brad Pitt. I say, okay, I know it's Brad Pitt. What's his name in the movie? Oh, his name is Frank. Oh, okay, Frank. And then later on I'll say, who is that guy? And she goes, that's Frank. And I go, oh yeah, okay, thanks. And then later on in the end of the movie, I go, what's this guy's name again? Who are they talking about? Frank, who is that? Chris, it's Brad. Don't you pay any attention? And I say, yeah, but I don't remember names like that. Well, why? Okay. I also do this. We go get a movie. How many of you rented a movie? And I say, ooh, let's get this one. And she'll say, we just saw that movie. It has Brad Pitt in it. And I go, what's his name, Frank? No. And I'll say, I don't remember that. And so I go, let's get it. No, we've seen it. And we put it in, and I go like this. Oh, God, I've seen this movie. What is wrong with my memory? How difficult or easy this task was has a lot to do with information processing in that you have 3 tasks. What I failed at, and oftentimes do in movies, is I don't encode this information. I don't put it into memory because I don't really, for some things, don't care that much. Does that make sense? And so if you don't get in, you have 3 tasks. You have to encode it, get it into your memory. You have to store it over time, that it's in there and it's stored, and then you got to be able to retrieve this information. Like going into a computer, doing a search, and recalling things out of your computer that's based upon things that you've experienced, and so you have to do retrieval. Now, this is not a very unsimilar process for us. There's a great analogy of putting things into a computer, typing them in. By the way, when computers first came out, I was around when they first came out. I still remember typing a paper, ready? 5 hours in front of a computer, typing a paper. And this was before there was automatic backup. 5, 6 hours now into this paper that I was just writing. There was no rough draft. I'm typing it in, and I'm sitting there like this, and I look up, and in the window, I see a squirrel on a little, wire, and it looked like this. And you know these little posts up there on top? That's not the real squirrel, but it was just a picture. But you know those little things up there? I saw a squirrel bouncing around. He goes up to one of those things, and I go, oh, that's cool, squirrel. Like up, squirrel, like that. And then I went back to work, and I'm typing like this. And I'm not kidding you, 15 seconds later, there was a flash of light. And it just went poof, and I went, oh. And I look over, and this thing exploded. And it went like that, a flash of light. And it exploded, and all of a sudden the squirrel caught fire. And he started to fly through the air and you could see him in there. See him? And now it flashed like this, and I went, oh! And I looked at my computer, and it was completely blank. And I went, hello, turn on, find my file. And it was like, there's no file. Find the file. And there's no file. And I realized he killed my file. And so I went to my roommate, Kurt. I said, I'm gonna, he goes, are you all right? And I said, no, a squirrel man. And he goes, what are you talking about? I'm gonna kill him. And he's like, let's go kill it. What do you do? And I told him, he goes, oh, let's go. And so I took a stick, I went outside and I found him. He was hanging over a fence, burning and singed, and his tail, it was black all the way up to his teeth, burning, he was dead. I couldn't even kill him. And I thought, you are the stupidest squirrel. Why would you bite that thing? And I didn't even have any pleasure of killing him. Like my paper, 7 hours of my life wasted because of you. The only good thing is his stupid gene squirrels, his genes, squirrel genes, are no longer in the gene pool. Huh. What problem was it? The problem was it was an encoding failure. Does that make sense? I never got that information into the memory. It never hit save. It's encoding. Those things happen in our lives. Somebody says, what's your name?
Anga.
Anga. I'll remember that one. Anga. How you doing? Good. My name is this. And then what? 30 seconds later, I'm like, what's his name? We did this before with? Shane. Where's Shane? Where are you at, Shane? Are you still over there? Shane. Where is he? Shane. Now he's going to go. Don't skip. Anga. Right? These kinds of things happen because they are encoding failures. There could be storage failures, retrieval failures. This ability not to get information out was Clive Waring's problem. Now, by the way, tip of the tongue is retrieval failure. If you're going, I know the name, this is what we call a retrieval failure. I know something is about to this or that, and it kind of sounds like this. It's just right there. We call it retrieval failure. By the way, is it easier for you to recall? I've asked you to try and recognize the name of the 7 dwarfs. That's a recognition task. I'm sorry. That's a recall task. What I asked you to do was recall the names of the 7 dwarfs. Do you think if I gave you, how many did not get all 7 names? If I listed them up there, would you be able to tell me if they were there accurate or not? If I listed them in a list of other names, would you be able to tell me which of the 7 are? Because your ability for recognition is pretty high. So here they are. Can you find the names? Grouchy, Gabby, Fearful, Sleepy, Smiley, Jumpy. Can you find it? Here are the names, the correct ones. Right here. Grumpy, Sleepy, Dopey, Grumpy, Sneezy, Happy, Doc, and Bashful. By the way, these are the order they're almost always recalled in. How many didn't remember Bashful or Doc? Because the other ones sound alike, right? Sleepy, Slopey, whatever.
Doc.
Recognition is a little bit better than recall. You have to also pay attention to things. We talked about in here that memory of things. If Anga. If Anga says his name and I don't pay attention, I could pay attention to other things and miss that name. And so, for us to get something in starts with something called attention. We have this ability to selectively pay attention to some things. This is known as filtering and distractions that we can filter out. Right now, some of you are facing distractions because of noises, things happening in your life, and you may not be able to or aren't paying attention. And because of that, you're paying attention to other things, and therefore the things that will never get stored or encoded into memory because of this filter. The filters help screen out things that we don't want to remember. All of the conversations that you've heard that are around you, you just want to go, I don't care, you remember this? You don't have to write this bottom 2 boxes down. This is from the chapter previously about controlled processes and automatic processes. We just go about, this filter comes into play. If we're concentrating on something, then noises can be shifted out. Have you ever tuned out all the conversations around you, like in the cafeteria, but if somebody says your name, you hear it even though all the other things? Has that ever happened? That's this idea of most of this filter works pretty well, but personal items to you, things you're thinking about, things that are important to you, like your name, get through that filter. Otherwise, we sometimes pull them out. So, questions? Yeah.
What about people who need music to study?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit. There is, I'll just say this. She asked a question, how about people that need music or you like music to study? You remember things better when you're studying with music? Is that the idea? That's the question, yeah. It's probably personal preference and what you've done. Sometimes, by the way, they found that you will then do better on the test if you can listen to that exact same music that you were listening to when you studied. It's like a prompt. They put people underwater with breathing tanks, and they had them memorize lists underwater, and then they said, now recall the list above water, and then another group recall that same list that you memorized underwater, recall it underwater, and they did better recalling it underwater. Does that make sense? A context-dependent effect. Real quickly, somebody asked about photographic picture images. This is called iconic memory. Iconic, think about the word icon. And we all have a photographic memory. Everybody with normal vision has a photographic memory. The only problem is, it only lasts about half of a second. But for about a half of a second, it shows up on your brain literally as a picture-perfect image that for some people with what we now call photographic memory, it just lasts longer than a half a second. That's called iconic memory. By the way, you do this instead of photographic, by the way, we call it eidetic imagery. Eidetic is just another name for photographic memory, and eidetic would be, you can test this pretty easily. Anybody know somebody in here with photographic or eidetic memory that has it? Okay. There's ways that it occurs that you can do some testing for. I'm just going to skip through this and tell you that it's also related. There's a great clip by a guy.
One of the techniques that I use to imitate psychic phenomena is photographic memory.
I'm not going to show it to you, unfortunately, but it's a great little clip. Just put in Darren Brown, eidetic or photographic memory, and he can take a book and in about less than a couple of minutes memorize the entire book. And you can say, what's on page 61? And he'll say, what line? And you tell him what line, and he'll say, oop, it's this. And that's a very powerful display. You might want to look at it and see how he does it. By the way, there are such things as echoic memory. What does that sound like? Sounds like echo. And the idea is that you have memories of things that you've just heard, auditory words, like my voice, will last for how long in your ear? Can you hear it when I stop talking? Can you still hear my voice? Really scary. But it lasts about 2 to 3 seconds. That's the weird thing. So if someone says, you're studying away, and they say, hey, you want to go to a movie? And you're like, what? Oh, yeah, right? Have you ever done that? And the person's like, why do you say what? You're like, because this memory, it's called echoic memory. It lasts about 2 to 4 seconds, which allows the processing of this sensation. And so we keep hearing this echoes. All right, so if it's photographic, we call it eidetic. But if it's just plain normal visual, iconic memory, or echoic memory if it's auditory in nature. Questions? All right. Dejavu. Ready? Another test. How many have heard of this before? Dejavu means the illusion that one has already had a given experience. How many have had a deja vu experience in the last, let's say, week? Well, all of a sudden, a lot of people, at least half of you said, there's some way in which this has occurred. There's been a glitch in the matrix or whatever. Ready? I'm going to give you, do not write these down, I'm going to give you 12 words. All right? Here we go. 12 words. Let's see how good you are at remembering these words. About 4 seconds each, okay? Don't write them down. You don't have to remember them in any order. Just remember as many as you can. Here we go. Okay, write down as many as you can recall in any order. There were 12. Any order. Okay, real quickly. Show of hands. How many remember the word pumpkin pie? Wasn't up there. How many remember the word sleep? Show of hands. I'd say 95% of you recalled this word. That's very interesting for this reason. Here are the words, the 12 words. The word sleep is not up there, but 95% of you recalled the word sleep. What that means is it possible that deja vu really is just your brain believing it experienced some event? Like I just saw the word sleep, but it really wasn't there, but the context was enough for you to recall it. And so deja vu really might not be anything more than going, I know I heard the word sleep. How many know you saw it up there? But, well, you didn't. But these things led you to this, and there's some explanations of deja vu that I'd like you to look at, but it might be similar to what just happened. Your brain is fooled into thinking that it did have a long-term memory and it recalled it, when in reality, it didn't. How many got at least 8 right, 7 right? Oh, good. How many got all of them right except for sleep? Somebody? Okay, so you had 13 maybe. Or some of you just got it all. By the way, lastly, and here's what I want to do and end with this. There are different levels of encoding. There's visual, acoustical, and deep meaning. So right now as you're writing these down, also write down the word that I had you remember 10 minutes ago. I put up a word and I had you remember it on a slide. How many believe you can write down the word, what it is? How many don't even remember the slide? Let's start visually. How many can still see it up there? How many think you know the color? What color was it? How many say green? I heard green. How many say yellow? All right, by the way, green, yellow. How many say red, white, black? It was none of them. Ready? How many remember the word because it sounded like something? You made it sound like a something. And by the way, if visual is you're telling me the color, and that's what we call shallow encoding. It's very structural. You see the color. Or you remember it. How many remember it being in small letters? How many being in all capital letters? That's visual encoding. Got it? How many, if you said it sounded like something that's acoustical, did anybody give a deep semantic word to it? Like, oh, it sounded like a thunderstorm. Did anybody do that? That's trying to get it into deep meaning. By the way, the word was that. Okay. Just so you know, if you really wanted to remember this, if you remembered it semantic, a deep meaning, ready? Here's deep. If you went like this, the, United States of America. Yeah. Then you would have what we call deep meaning, semantical, and probably not forget it for a long time, the United States of America. So your goal when you study things is to get at the deepest level to put some meaning to them. We're out of time. We'll finish this on Monday we'll start talking about emotions on Monday.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.